Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to look at Time Magazine's best books of 2025 so far. If you know me, you know I love a best books list, a long list, just anything in that vein because I love to use it as a tool of discovery to help me find books that I might have overlooked, but also to help me think about books that I need to prioritize, especially when we do these best lists in the middle of the year. Helps me think about what I might want to prioritize in the second half of the year so I can get to it before the year is over. And we will get into it, talk about all 14 of these books. Most of them are fiction. I think there are at least 2 nonfiction books, and we will talk about each of them. And these are not intended to be reviews. I feel like I have to add this as a PSA every time because when I don't, people start to say, how can you review books you haven't read? And that's not the purpose of this video. I'm not attempting to review. I am talking about my own interest in reading these books. I've tried to stay as fresh as possible for the books that are less familiar to me so I can give you an honest, real-time reaction to whether or not I would like to read it. And your opinions on whether or not you want to read these books may vary. Maybe you loved a book that I feel disinclined to read. If that is the case, you can let me know in the comment section that you think I should change my mind, and maybe you will. I should note, I've already done a reaction to the New York Times book reviews best books of the year so far because they jumped the gun on everybody this year by releasing their best of the year so far list in May and promising that they would update it as the summer continues. Which is an interesting strategy. I think it was purely based on SEO and ranking, so their list would have already been out there before everybody else's. Anyway, it'll be linked down below. I will also have affiliate links to all of the books if you want more information about them or if you want to purchase them. You may do so from there. That's to bookshop.org. Or you can contact your local independent bookstore. I am wearing a t-shirt from the Elliott Bay Book Company today. That's a great store, even if you don't live in Seattle, like I don't live in Seattle. Or, of course, you could reach out to your local library. Reserve a copy of the book there. Supporting your local library is always a good thing to do. And if they don't have the book, you can request that they purchase a copy, and maybe they will. Let's dive in and get started since, as I said, we have 14 books to get through. The first book on the list is The Antidote by Karen Russell. I have this advanced reader's copy that I got when Joel and I were in Portland for a book conference at the end of September, beginning of October in 2024, but I have not read it yet. Here is what they say about it. It feels like the U.S. has lived 100 lifetimes since Karen Russell's much-lauded 2011 debut Swamplandia, but it's safe to say that her highly anticipated follow-up, The Antidote, was worth the wait. She did release at least one short story collection in between. I think there may have been 2 short story collections in between, so I feel like they're specifically referring to novels when they say that. I just don't want you to get the wrong impression and think that she hasn't published anything since 2011. Vampires in the Lemon Grove is a collection of short stories. I don't remember most of them, but there is one short story in that collection that has stayed in my mind ever since. Anyway, Swamplandia, by the way, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in the year in which there was no winner. I have a video about that. I'll link it down below. So if you want more information about that situation and about Swamplandia, go down there and check it out. It's wild. So, an American epic that takes place in the 1930s in the fictional town of Uz, Nebraska. Uz, U-Z, could be Uz. The story centers on a prairie witch who calls herself the Antidote. Yes, a prairie witch who calls herself the Antidote. A healer of sorts, the Antidote, like other prairie witches, is a keeper of others' thoughts, a memory vault who absorbs the heaviness of people's grief so they may have a chance at feeling lightness again. But when a dust bowl devastates the town, it takes the witch's memory, deposits with it, and leaves her fearful for her safety. What will happen to her when people can no longer unload their worst and have to actually live with themselves? Told from the vantage point of multiple inhabitants of Uz, The Antidote is a sprawling yet meticulous story that implores us to see American history in its fullness, scars, and all. I think the thing that has made me hold off on reading this book a bit is, well, the prairie witch angle, really. I don't really get along with supernatural books or books that lean in that sort of direction. So that is the thing that has really made me hold off on diving into this book. I did enjoy Swamplandia. I think it's not a perfect book. I think it has flaws, but I did enjoy it. And as I said, I did enjoy the Vampires in the Lemon Grove for the most part. And maybe I will enjoy this one as well. The other thing that's happened is since this book was released in March, I really haven't heard anything about it. It feels like there was a bit of buzz leading up to the release, and then it's just been quiet ever since. So it's good to see this book on one of these lists. It gets me thinking again about picking it up. If you have read The Antidote, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. And we'll see, it has a nice blurb from Kaveh Akbar, author of Martyr, on the cover of the jacket. So maybe this is something I should prioritize before the end of the year, especially when it talks about, it implores us to see American history in its fullness, scars and all. That does set my little Pulitzer Prize sensor tingling because the Pulitzer Prize, if you're unaware, is intended to go to an American author for a book preferably dealing with American life. So, and she was already a finalist before, so this seems like something that could be in contention. Moving along, the next book on the list is Audition by Katie Kitamura. I also got an advanced reader's copy of this book at the same conference where I got a copy of Antidote. Here is what they say about it. Audition, Katie Kitamura's taut and incisive follow-up to Intimacies, begins on a rich premise. The narrator, a successful actress navigating a difficult new role, goes to a Manhattan restaurant to meet a younger man, Xavier, who claims he's her son. It's impossible. The actress, who goes unnamed, has never given birth or been a parent. But the strange encounter isn't their last. Xavier begins working on the same play, and his bold assertion prompts her to unravel the many choices and performances that have brought her to this particular moment on stage and in life. Halfway through, Audition changes realities, completely redefining the relationship between the two. Kitamura's tantalizing novel asks a lot of the reader, offering multiple versions of the same life that circle around an idea raised by the protagonist herself. Quote, "As you get older, things become less clear." End quote. I think the thing that's made me hold off of this one is that once it got close to this book's release, I started seeing reviews that say the same thing. It asks a lot of the reader, which means in 2025, as the world is burning down and things are not feeling great, I haven't had a whole lot of mental and emotional bandwidth, and it makes me feel hesitant to step in. I do want to read this book still. And I do have access to the audio, and I've wondered if that's the right way to go because it will allow me to get into the book. But then I also wonder if that's not the way to go because if it really does ask a lot of the reader, maybe I would be better off waiting until I have the bandwidth to read the book itself. This is another case where there was a lot of advance buzz for the book, but then once it was released, things just really quieted down a lot. And maybe things will pick up for both The Antidote and Audition when we start to get into the second half of the year because, National Book Award will be announcing its long list and we'll be starting to get some best of lists for the year, like actual full year best of lists. And maybe we'll start hearing more about these books then, but it's been very quiet right now. So again, if you've read Audition, let me know what you thought of it. I want to read both Audition and The Antidote. I'm just holding off, and I had been honestly hoping for a bit more feedback on both. So if you have that feedback, I would love to hear it. The third book is one that I actually just purchased. So spoiler for my book haul for the month of June. It's The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. I was more muted on Unearthed We're Briefly Gorgeous, which was Ocean Vuong's previous novel, than a lot of other people were. I think it suffered in part from a sense of hype, from the way people were talking about it and kept recommending it to me and telling me, oh my God, you're going to love this book. I think I went in with very high expectations, and that can be a bit of a harmful thing to do to a book. So part of me feels like I should go back and reread it. I have also listened to a poetry collection of Ocean Vuong's, and I thought it was just okay. Part of me is also thinking when I do this one, because I did the audio of Unearthed We're Briefly Gorgeous and the audio of the poetry collection. So I feel like, what if I read this book and engage with the text in that way? Maybe that will change my perception, and maybe I'm going in with more tempered expectations this time. So this is definitely one that I want to catch up to in the second half of 2025. Here's what they say about it. In his second novel, Ocean Vuong sheds the epistolary conceit of his acclaimed debut, 2019's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. The result is a more sprawling yet direct coming-of-age tale animated by the specificity of its characters. When we meet 19-year-old Hai, he's standing ominously on a bridge in his depressed hometown of East Gladness, Connecticut. His first love is dead of a fentanyl overdose, and his mom believes the flimsy lie that he's at medical school, leaving Hai with a craving for opioids and nowhere to go. Before he can do anything drastic, he's spotted by a dementia-stricken elderly woman, Grazina, who must sense his fundamental gentleness because she says he can move into her place if he'll care for her. Along with his misfit coworkers at a fast food joint, Grazina anchors the lost boy, even as her own mind drifts from its moorings. A premise that a lesser writer might churn into inspiration porn becomes, in Vuong's hands, a vivid, funny, emotionally realistic case study in the life-altering potential of community. And that does sound really good. So I look forward to trying this book and trying Ocean Vuong again in the second half of 2025. Now we get to one of the books that I am pretty unfamiliar with. So this description that they have will be my first impression of the book. And I'm excited to read it and see if this is a book I need to add to my pile of possibilities for the rest of 2025. It's Ginkgo Season by Naomi Zhu Elegant. There are many debut novels about young people finding love and seeking purpose, but few are as perceptive about the connection between those pursuits as Naomi Zhu Elegant's ruminative Ginkgo Season. Stubbornly fixated on a college boyfriend who broke her heart, 20-something narrator Penelope Lynn works at a Philadelphia museum, pores over the city's history, and maintains a modest social life, largely disconnected from her family. When she meets a guy, Huang, who has just confessed to freeing mice marked for death at a lab where he works, their excruciatingly slow-moving courtship pushes Penelope to think harder about her own principles and priorities. Elegant's writing is as unassuming here as her heroine, yet the questions she raises about how to live with integrity in a compromised world can be startlingly profound. That sounds really interesting. So I am definitely going to be looking this book up to see if maybe my library has it. I might seek out other reviews, maybe see what Kirk has said about it. And if my library has it, or if I have access to the audio and like maybe get on a hold list for it, I feel like this is something that I'd be interested in catching up to. If you've read this book, I would really be interested in what you have to say about the experience, because I am going to be thinking about putting it on my pile of possibilities for the rest of the year. And again, I would love to hear if you've read it and if you have thoughts, and especially if you follow along and you know me as a reader, is this something you think I would like? It sounds really interesting to me. Next, we get to one of the nonfiction books, Is a River Alive by Robert Macfarlane. I have heard of this one. It does sound interesting, but let's see what they say about it. The argument that flows from this book is simple. Rivers, for all the essential nutrients, biodiversity, and transportation possibilities they provide, deserve to be treated with the same respect as other living organisms. Robert Macfarlane visited 3 rivers, starting with the River of the Cedars in an Ecuadorian cloud forest, recently threatened by mining companies. He surveyed waterways in Chennai, India, which flood streets with crocodiles and catfish after cyclones. And he visited Mutahakau-Chippewa in Quebec, the first Canadian river to be given rights, including the right to be pollution-free. The author of Underland lends his expertise to raise awareness about a part of nature that is often taken for granted. Readers see that while rivers can be easily wounded, they can also quickly heal if given the right care. That does sound really interesting. I don't think I would purchase a copy of this book because I tend to do nonfiction books better on audio. So if I do get around to reading this, I would find the audio somewhere, maybe cash in a credit on Libro or something like that. And if you've read this, again, let me know if you think it's something I should prioritize and get to soon. By the way, I apologize if I mispronounced any of the cities. As I said, I'm trying to go in fresh as possible to these, so I didn't have an opportunity to look up anything. So please forgive me if I've mispronounced any of the city names or river names. And you can always gently correct me in the comment section down below. The next book is Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. Now, Ron Chernow is, I believe he's a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer. He wrote Hamilton, which is what the musical Hamilton was based on. And he writes really, really big biographies. And I am not someone who likes big, heavy nonfiction books like that and biographies. So I don't know that this is something that would be for me, but I fully respect all of the people who do find themselves interested in books like this and enjoy them. That is great. I'm sure there is a lot to learn about the life of Mark Twain in this book. I would be a little hesitant before committing myself to it. That's all. But I do think there's a possibility that a lot of other people out here will be interested in this. So here's what they have to say about it. Ron Chernow, the author of the best-selling tomes Alexander Hamilton and Grant, offers a frank assessment of Mark Twain, the first major literary celebrity in the U.S. and a leading pundit of the Civil War era, whose writings helped Americans make sense of life after slavery. While his novels The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn became classics, Twain made poor financial decisions that bankrupted him and forced him to flee the country and spend nearly a decade in exile. Chernow's biography gives the encyclopedic treatment to the writer, boasting about 1,200 pages based on his books, letters, and unpublished manuscripts. Encyclopedic is a descriptor that immediately makes my brain scream, no! So, again, I don't think it's a book that would be for me, although I would be interested in learning more about Mark Twain, but definitely something worth bringing to the attention of a lot of other people out there, especially if you haven't been, like me, maybe you would reconsider. I am very stubborn and hard to sell on things like that because I've been burned by books of that size and topic before. So if you've read it and you loved it, let me know in the comment section down below. Now we get to another book that I think I might have heard of, but I can't remember where or when. So this description will probably reveal a lot. It's My Documents by Kevin Nguyen. In this dystopian speculative fiction novel, Vietnamese Americans are shipped to internment camps following a terrorist attack, with their civil rights and dignity stripped in the name of national security. It's ringing a bell right away why this is sounding familiar, because I think I saw that premise and thought, oh, too real for right now. So, while the premise could result in an overly dour or preachy book, Nguyen's novel zips forward with page-turning suspense, humor, and nuance. The book revolves around 4 half-siblings as they each confront difficult ethical choices and navigate their relationships with an oppressive state, cultural expectations, and each other. While parts of this novel are carefully grounded in history, especially in the experience of Japanese American incarceration during World War II, the book also crackles with modern culture and proves gaspingly relevant in an era of division and heightened surveillance. Now, obviously, when this book was written, there's no way that they could have known what was going to be coming in 2025. But yes, hyper relevant book. If you're one of the people who, like in the early days of the pandemic, was watching Outbreak and things like that, maybe this is for you, because the news is stressing me out so much and causing me big anxiety. I feel like not something I should do right now, but it does sound fascinating. Although I do struggle with dystopia and speculative fiction. So there are some things that make me hesitate, but, well, a lot of things, because the fact that things like that are happening in the news right now or being threatened to happen soon spikes anxiety. That's a big hurdle. That would be a huge one for me to get over. So anyway, it does sound really interesting, and I'd love to hear your experience with this book if you have read it. Next is O Sinners by Nicole Cuffey, another book I am totally unfamiliar with. So this description will be my first experience of this book. Let's see if it's something that I would like to read. At the center of Nicole Cuffey's O Sinners is Farouk Zaidi, a Brooklyn-based journalist grieving the recent death of his devout Muslim father. After learning about a cult called The Nameless, whose followers abide by teachings like create beauty and do not despair at death, Farouk, a skeptic who has felt disconnected from faith and religion since he was a teenager, travels to their compound in the California redwoods to report a story. But as he grows closer to the group's inscrutable leader, a Black Vietnam War veteran called Odo, Farouk begins to question more than just the secret inner workings of the cult itself. O Sinners is driven by 3 alternating narratives: Farouk's present-day work trip, Odo's tour of duty in Vietnam, and the screenplay of a documentary about a legal battle between the cult and a fundamentalist church in Texas. In weaving together these stories, Cuffey explores the varying shapes that grief, belief, and belonging can take. There are definitely aspects of that really strike my interest. The son grieving the death of his father, belonging, those are things that immediately spark my interest in a book. Belief, and questions of religion can be hit or miss for me. But this is another one. I'm probably going to seek out extra reviews of this one and see what other people have been saying about this book, and then think about whether or not it's something that I want to add. But I am intrigued, so this could end up being something that I would like to catch up to in the second half of 2025. And again, if you've read this book, I'd love to hear what you thought of it in the comment section. Now we have One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. I attempted to read an Omar El-Akkad book about a year or two ago, and very similar to what I was saying about the dystopia and speculative fiction novel, it really tripped anxiety about the current state of the world, and I could not read it. So I have resisted thinking too much about this new book because I'm kind of worried it would be more of the same. So let's see what the description is. And again, my experience might be totally different from yours, and that's fair and valid and good. In late October 2023, Omar El-Akkad started to outline his feelings about the war in Gaza and how it feels to be a person unanchored from home. In his urgent nonfiction debut, the writer, who was born in Cairo, grew up in Doha, moved to Canada, and now lives in rural Oregon, wrestles with his disillusionment with the West and its institutions, particularly given the indifference he's observed in so many as the war rages on. This memoir manifesto could be seen as hopeless, and there is certainly no shortage of carnage in its pages. But in the determination of those standing up for their beliefs, El-Akkad manages to find hope amidst the fantasy of Western liberalism. It does sound really interesting. I think, because I do think it's important to challenge yourself, and, I think I will make myself look at some other reviews of this book and check its availability. I, as I said, tend to do better with nonfiction on audio, so maybe I'll see if Libby has this book and kind of go from there, because I assume there's a long wait list. So maybe by the time it would become available, I would feel ready to dive in. So we'll see what happens with that. Next is Run for the Hills by Kevin Wilson. Now, I've only read one Kevin Wilson book, Now Is Not the Time to Panic, and I just thought it was strictly okay. However, Kevin Wilson is an author who is consistently recommended to me, and I can't remember what Kevin Wilson's first book was called, but it is something that is particularly recommended to me, so maybe I started in the wrong place. So I have heard good things about Run for the Hills as well, or at least excitement about it. So maybe I should reconsider and consider trying Kevin Wilson again. Let's see what they say. In Kevin Wilson's latest novel, Mad spends her days working on a farm with her mom. She hasn't seen her dad in 2 decades, and she's settled into a routine that's not particularly fulfilling, but she's made her peace with that. Then a stranger appears at her front door and announces that he's her older half-brother, and that their father pulled a disappearing act on not just him and Mad, but other families too. He convinces her to join him on a cross-country road trip to round up their other siblings and find their father. What ensues is an often hilarious and sometimes devastating exploration of what really makes a family. Lake Wilson, not Luke Wilson, that's an actor from the Royal Tenenbaums. Anyway, Lake Wilson's other fiction, including Nothing to See Here, that's the book I was thinking of. And Now Is Not the Time to Panic, Run for the Hills gently tugs at the heart. I didn't think Now Is Not the Time to Panic gently tugged at the heart. So again, I am a little skeptical, but it does sound like it hits a lot of things that spark my interest in books, like the question of family, and road trips can be kind of fun in movies and in fiction. So if you think I should reconsider, let me know in the comment section down below. Part of me feels skeptical enough that I think I would hold off on this one until I've gotten to some of the other books that feel more pressing, but we'll see. Now we get to Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. Sky Daddy, this is going to be exciting because this book sounds wild. Sky Daddy is a love story, but one we're willing to bet is unlike any love story you've previously encountered. Drawing inspiration from Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Kate Folk's debut novel revolves around one woman's pursuit of her own white whale, finding her aircraft soulmate. That's really the premise. Our eccentric protagonist, Linda, wants to fall in love with a plane, and in a morbid twist, she wants to consummate their relationship by dying in an aviation accident. That part was not in any of the other reviews that I saw, so even more wild. Linda is a San Francisco transplant who makes $20 an hour moderating hate comments for a video sharing platform and devotes as much of that meager salary as possible to exploring the aircraft dating pool by catching flights. Linda is determined to keep her unusual proclivities a secret, but after her work friend Karina invites her to a monthly vision board brunch with some old college friends, Linda's attempts to manifest her idea of romantic bliss end up setting her on a path to radical self-acceptance. Sky Daddy is as poignant as it is bizarre. I don't know that bizarre is something that I really get along with, so I feel like I've been happy watching other people react to this book, and it seems like a definite cilantro book. You either love it or you really hate it, depending on, and that probably depends on how you respond to the premise and how you accept the bizarre. I'm not convinced it's something that I would end up enjoying, but as I said, I have enjoyed seeing people's reactions to this book, both the love it and hate it variety. And if you've read it, I'd love to hear what you thought of this book as well. Now we have The Tell by Amy Griffin. I don't think I know this book, so this will be exciting. Rarely, if ever, has a book been endorsed by all three titans in the celebrity book club world: Oprah, Reese Witherspoon, and Jenna Bush Hager. But Amy Griffin's The Tell is no ordinary memoir. For readers of Tara Westover's Educated, oh, I love that book. Or Chanel Willer's Know My Name, I love that book too. So I'm like, my ears are perking up here. The Tell is one of those deeply personal stories that manages to feel universal at the same time. Griffin was thriving as a businesswoman and happily married mother of 4 in New York City when a session with an MDMA therapist flooded her mind with long-buried memories. Suddenly, she remembered the sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of a teacher starting when she was 12 years old. Shattered and enraged, Griffin struggled to reconcile her past with her carefully constructed self-image and grappled with the weight of carrying such a harrowing secret. Her memoir retraces her steps through her private grief and isolating pursuit of justice, and ultimately, her powerful realization that to tell is to heal. Tara Westover's book Educated and Chanel Miller's Know My Name, those are difficult books, grappling with very difficult subject matter, abuse and sexual assault in both books. And or in cover, not in both books, but Tara Westover's Educated deals with abuse. Know My Name deals with sexual assault. And they're very difficult. So they can be a hard sell, especially if those are trigger warnings for you. But I think both of those books are really tremendous. So comparing this one to those really makes me sit up and pay attention. So I think I'm going to be looking to see if there's an audio of this that might be available or get on a wait list for it, because it sounds really interesting. Now we get to Things in Nature Merely Grow by Yi-Yoon Lee. Now, I have been pretty happy sitting on the sidelines with this one because I forced myself to read one of Yi-Yoon Lee's, which really gives you an idea of what I thought of it, and I DNF'd another one. So I have not really responded to a lot of her writing. This is a nonfiction book. I've seen a lot of praise of it, but let's just do the description and then we'll talk about it. Because from what I know, this deals with what at least one of the novels that I read dealt with. After her teenage son, James, dies by suicide, Yi-Yoon Lee begins writing. It's what she knows how to do. The prolific author has tragically been in this position before. Her older son, Vincent, died by suicide in 2017. In her transcendent new book, she writes that she does not ruminate on grief because to grieve suggests a process to which there is an end. She knows that to continue living is to accept that she will be a parent to her children for the rest of her life. In sparing prose that cuts deeply, Lee examines the relationship between language and loss, honoring the sons who she carries with her always. And, I mean, right away, I don't really agree that grief is a process that suggests an ending. I have had many conversations with my therapist about grief, and we have talked about how grief is something that can go on in perpetuity. And I've read books that deal with the same concept. So I don't think of grief as a closed process. So right away, I'm having like a disconnect from the book. And maybe this would be a better way, because I feel like one of the novels that I DNF'd by Yi-Yoon Lee is a sort of stream of consciousness. It's fiction, but it's clearly reacting to the suicide of her son. So it feels like eavesdropping on someone's therapy session, and I didn't quite get along with it. So I fully respect the amount of praise that this book is getting. I don't want to diminish that. I don't want to diminish the enjoyment that people are getting out of this. If you are someone who is dealing with grief as well, and this book helps you, that's great. I feel happy kind of sitting on the sideline, being honest. Now, we have one last book. It's Tilt by Emma Patty. I have seen this cover. I think I've looked into what it's about, and I honestly don't remember. So this will kind of be a journey of rediscovery for me. Emma Patty's Tilt is an apocalyptic nightmare come to life. I immediately know why I didn't pursue this book any further. Annie is 9 months pregnant and shopping at IKEA when Oregon is hit with the big one, the earthquake that people in the Pacific Northwest have been anticipating for years. Patty's thrilling debut tracks Annie's journey through rubble, chaos, hope, and despair as she searches for her husband amid the disaster. Tilt is a propulsive account of survival and how humanity shows up under the pressure of catastrophe. As she treks across Portland, Annie flashes back to moments that shed light on her life choices thus far. Her marriage and career are thrust under a microscope as she encounters others in crisis: the wounded, the searching, the lost, and the desperate. Best read in one sitting, Tilt is a raw examination of motherhood and its most extreme demands. So I think when I heard apocalyptic nightmare come to life, I had a knee-jerk reaction entirely based on my anxiety about current events in the year 2025 and said, nope. But the rest of the description does sound really interesting. Kind of sounds like The Road a bit, maybe with a bit more hope than The Road by Cormac McCarthy, but it does sound interesting. So now that's why we do this, because it can confirm some judgments that I had. Like, I still don't feel convinced that I would want to read the new Yi Yoon Lee, but I have ended up re-examining this book and thinking that maybe this is something I should add to my pile of possibilities going forward. If you have thoughts, let me know in the comment section down below, and let me know what you think of this list. I have already done a reaction to the New York Times best of list. As I said, that will be linked down below. So hopefully we'll be getting some more coming and seeing what other books pop up. But I'd love to hear if there's something that you think is missing from this list, or what you think of the list in general. Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.